You're listening to the Served Up Show, a podcast that features inspiring beverage professionals and topic experts that share their passions through meaningful content. Your hostesses, Bridget Albert, is best known as the Market Fresh Mixologist, an industry mentor with over 25 years of experience. And I'm Julie Milroy, best known for my passion for leading change and helping others grow in their careers. Grab a cocktail and sit back. Let's learn how we can make a positive impact in our industry.
Hey y'all, Bridget here. Welcome to part 2 of my interview with Executive Director of the United States Bartenders Guild, Gregory Smith. In this episode, Aaron shares his insights to the USBG's history, their community activities, charity efforts, how you can become a member, and so much more. Grab yourself your favorite cocktail, sit back, relax, and enjoy this very special show. Hey, Aaron, welcome back to Served Up.
Thanks, Bridget. Glad to be back.
You know, we were just scratching the surface on your first show of your extensive career within the hospitality industry that led us really up to the United States Bartenders Guild and your current role. So I would love to start there. If you could tell our listeners the history of the United States Bartenders Guild, where it comes from, and truly, what is the International Bartender Association?
Well, absolutely. Very good timing on that, actually, because I've just returned from the International Bartenders Association's annual World Cocktail Championship. So, the timing on our history and our connection to bartender associations over the world is feeling very fresh and, I'm still kind of enjoying the glow of what it feels like to get into a room of bartenders and hospitality professionals from more than 50 countries around the world. So let's start there. I'll have to preface this by saying there are a couple of people in our organization with a much better knowledge of the history of the organization and how it started. But I'll get you as far as I know. And then recommend that you dig a little deeper with the people who have really done this archival research. Livia Loro, a former president of the USBG, has spent a number of years really digging into this fascinating history. But I'll give you the Cliff Notes version at least. So the USBG actually started as the California chapter of the United Kingdom Bartenders Guild. And the UKBG is still in existence. In fact, I spent quite a lot of time with the president of the UKBG over this last week while we were in Varadero, Cuba. And she is a beverage director for a company there. And we got to talking a lot about our history and our shared history and really enjoyed that. So formally, the organization kicked off as the California Bartenders Guild in 1948. And then eventually other chapters were formed and it became the United States Bartenders Guild. So 1948, that means we're at year 74 right now and just getting ready to turn 75, which we're really excited about. The USBG was volunteer managed and run really until the mid 2000s. And when Livia, who I was mentioning, hired the first contractor to sort of support programs for the association, that was really where we transitioned from, a volunteer organized social and educational organization to becoming a true association. And so we had a few contractors work for the guild over a few years. And then in 2013, we really started building a staff, and now we have a staff of 14 full-time employees.
Yeah, that's really incredible how much it's grown over the last, this year 74 years, next year 75 years. Mm-hmm. And my question to you is, Aaron, can you maybe paint a picture of what the guild would have really looked like, what some of the activities that they were doing in the 40s? What was their purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is pure speculation on my part because I'm not a historian, right? In the post-war period, the post-World War II period, the world was really trying to figure out how to not do this again, how not to fall into global warfare again, especially where Europe was devastated, as well as a lot of the Asia Pacific region from this war. And so you see institutions, global institutions, really start forming. The League of Nations, which ultimately became the United Nations, and you see other sort of industries coming together and joining forces to build personal relationships across national boundaries, so that really a sense of community could form at the global level. And the Bartenders Association, the International Bartenders Association, I think was formed as part of that coming together, as part of that, bridging of national borders. So the activity that really has kept the International Bartenders Association and many of the associations around the world together over all the ups and downs and the economic comings and goings of the last 74, 75 years has been competition. And I know not everybody sees themselves as a competitive person, and so that cocktail competitions can feel a little bit sport-like. They can, competition doesn't always bring out everybody's best self, but really what it did is kind of kept a culture. It's like you have to keep some sort of level of infrastructure in your organization to both recruit and organize a competition each year. And so this is what was sort of the linchpin that kept these associations growing and connecting with each other once a year. That competition also gives an opportunity for beverage alcohol suppliers to engage with the bartenders. And by hosting these global competitions each year and bringing in sponsors to connect with the bartenders, the IBA was able to host an international, what they call the annual general meeting of the presidents of all of these associations of the world. So really, without the competition, there would not have necessarily been this draw to bring everyone together, to get in the same room, to connect with one another, and to make decisions for this organization over all of these years. So, competition has really been core to the organization, to the culture of it, and to its ability to create and hold space for governments to evolve. And that's not unlike our own association with the U.S. Bartenders Guild.
That's really interesting when you talk about competitions. I want to ask you something. Why do you think bartenders enjoy competing in a cocktail competition?
That is such a good question. And I think it's a very rich answer. I spend a lot of time in my role as executive director thinking about competitions, thinking about how to make them connect and to give bartenders something of value, whether or not they get that top spot and win. Bartenders sacrifice so much time, effort, and creativity to participate in competitions. Any competition that I work on, I want to make sure that they are getting something of value back, that's something that they can take to work with them, that they can carry forward into their careers. So I do think about this question a lot. Why do bartenders, why are they interested in competitions so much? What's the draw? Of course, there is that, a desire to validate the skills that you are developing behind the bar. Our current president, T. Cole Newton, once said, that bartending can feel very isolating. You are sort of on an island within your team in your bar or restaurant. And while you're engaging a lot with guests and you're definitely having some side-to-side conversations with your fellow bartenders, where servers get to go in the back and maybe, let off some steam a little bit, where, your back of house colleagues and coworkers have each other and they don't have to necessarily be on all night. Bartenders often come in earlier than the rest of the front of house staff, leave later than the front of house staff. They have these customer service and production roles within there. And so there's just a lot of, there's not a whole lot of time to socialize outside of your guest interaction. And so they just really have a unique position within the bar and restaurants where they work. So being able to step out of that space and connect with other people that share that experience, that share the values that go along with that experience, can be really rewarding and reinvigorating. As many of us know who bartended for years, it can become a grind, and it can become exhausting. And so being able to join into these shared spaces with other people who care as much about the work as you do, just can be really inspirational when you start to lose some of your steam.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And competing's fun.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it is. It's a lot of fun to get up there on the stage and, show them what you got. I think it's a good time.
Yeah, show them what you got.
Everyone, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's fun for the audience. It's, one of the other things I see that happens a lot at competitions is a fantastic peer network develops. And so you get to know other people who are at a similar stage of their career, right, where they've done their homework, they've been practicing, they've been giving that, they've been doing working very hard toward those 10,000 hours of focused practice to make them, to gain their expertise in the field, and so that peer-to-peer network is really strong. I see former competitors from USBG competitions. Opening businesses together, traveling together as friends and colleagues. And then the other relationship that I really love that forms is the mentorship relationship between some of the judges and the competitors. For the USBG, we work really hard to get our judges ready to provide as unbiased an evaluation as they can. In a competition, we go through, some of the principles of organizational psychology that managers and supervisors are often trained on in larger corporations to give unbiased performance evaluations of their employees. So we run through a training with them, and we always encourage them to take copious notes, what the competitor did well, what the competitor could improve on, and then just any other words of guidance that might help this competitor either at work in producing cocktails that are going to be really meaningful to their guests and to their establishments, and as well as how they might improve their performance for other competitions or other presentations where they are giving a presentation around cocktails. And that feedback at every stage of the competition, whether it's the entry point, the semifinals or the final round, is that we hope that sort of gift of value that makes it worth the competitor's time to volunteer their creativity and efforts and their unpaid time off work, frankly, to participate in these activities.
Can you talk about where the USBG is today as far as community building programming and education, and really the great stuff that the USBG does to help support the beverage community?
Yes, I can talk a little bit about that, or probably too much about that, to be frank. So, as the organization has been professionalizing, with a professional association staff, with a governance board of directors, which is, a stage of maturity for an association above and beyond volunteer managed, we have really focused in on what is our purpose and our intention. I think the organization has always done a good job of creating that social environment for bartenders to be in shared spaces with one another, or at least that's been a clear purpose. Education sort of became a question and an intention in, probably 2013 to 2018. We really had a lot of discussions about what does education mean in the context of an association. So, our national association and our chapters across the country have really focused in and asked, what is it that makes nonprofit provided, educational content unique and meaningful in the community? So this is a question that is never answered, but some of the things that we've discovered along the journey toward that answer is that we have some incredible partners across the industry that do an exceptional job of creating educational content that helps their customers, which is, for many of them, and for a big proportion of their sales, go through the on-premise trade. So there is a great effort to provide useful customer knowledge, as any great marketing program will do, to members of the trade who can then share some of that knowledge and care for those products to their guests, to their employees. So that is an important aspect of our industry. I don't think that there's a nonprofit in the bar, restaurant, hospitality space that has the access to resources that some of our wonderful supplier partners have. But we also need to go beyond that in our nonprofit space and find those things where maybe there isn't a profit incentive, where maybe there isn't a marketing intention to get these skills and resources into the hands of the bartenders that need them. The hospitality industry is notoriously under-resourced when it comes to professional development, when it comes to management training. I don't know about you, Bridget, but when I got my first management job, I got some good training for a few weeks. And then, when I called for an emergency, they stopped picking up after a while, and you realize you just have to sink or swim. You have to figure it out. They put you out of the nest and you go for it.
Baptism by fire.
Yeah, exactly. So after that, where do you go to get better? Where do you go once you've exhausted the mentorship that's available to you from your general manager, from whether it's the owner or, maybe if you're at a more medium-sized restaurant, maybe there's a district manager or a regional manager. Once you've exhausted their capacity to mentor you, where do you go for those next steps? And I would say that the United States Bartenders Guild is trying to be that place for a bartender who would like to be a bar manager who would like to be a general manager who would like to become an owner someday, to exceed the capacity of their current business, of their current employer, to gain the network and skills that they need to take that next step.
I think that that's amazing, to be a resource for all of those things, because no one goes to college to become a bartender, right? No one goes to a school, right, to have those resources and that roadmap, with the acceleration plan in place for your career. So it's amazing that the United States Bartenders Guild has those resources in place to assist and to support the community. Can you talk about the charitable arm of the United States Bartenders Guild, the good that it did during COVID and the good that it continues to do? Absolutely. Well,
I know that's an area that is central for both of us, and we have a lot of shared experience there. As the bartender community was growing in late 2000s, early 2010s, and we were starting to organize a little bit more, and we saw organizations like Tales of the Cocktail Foundation really take off and really create a sense of community between bars and restaurants outside of our neighborhoods, where there's always been community between the establishments in a neighborhood. We saw the extraordinary need for people who had come across, an unexpected circumstance. And as an industry without easy access to medical insurance, due to high turnover, lower wages and an industry that just hasn't figured out how to make our current health insurance system work for it. People get into emergency situations and they're just in a deep hole. And different groups of bartenders across the country had started hosting fundraising events to try and help raise money for people who were going through a difficult time. We saw a member in our San Francisco chapter who had been through whose apartment building had caught on fire and just had a lot of medical expenses related to that. Another bartender who had gotten into a very bad car accident and had a very long stay in the hospital recovering from that. A bartender with a very rare blood disorder, that had been hospitalized. And And we saw the community coming together to help support these people in a very difficult time of need. And we, many of us realized that these events were great. It really required, for those people to get access to this community, it required a lot of existing network, a connection to this group of people who were tightly integrated. And it just, there was also what we were doing at that time was not under the guise of formal recognition of charity. So it was sort of like, an informal gift, but it was all a little bit off the books. And what we realized is for us to scale this, for us to really make it accessible to bartenders all over the country, we really needed to work with the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, and have this activity recognized for the public benefit that it is, which is poverty relief. It's how emergency assistance programs are set up. We also wanted to set up a system that had other support resources besides just emergency assistance. Like, how can we get people other types of support when they need it? How can we connect them to other resources? So that is how that, and a commitment to community service is how the USBG National Charity Foundation was formed in 2012. We also partnered with Tony Abughanam, who was working on a bartender fund for bartenders and their families affected by cancer. And so we sort of joined forces with them and the Bartenders Relief Fund that had formed locally in California, and built the Bartender Emergency Assistance Program, the Helen David Relief Fund, that are now the two core emergency assistance programs at the USBG Foundation. Emergency assistance is an area that is hugely beneficial to the people it impacts. It is also an exceptional target for fraud, for misrepresentation, for theft. And it's a very highly regulated area of charitable work. In fact, there's now some states require registration with the emergency management organizations in the state because of how much fraud and abuse and misconduct takes place in emergency assistance. So it's not an area that is easy to enter. It's also not an area that's easy to enter nationally, because you really have to have your nonprofit registration set up very, very carefully across all the states. So I know we see a lot of startup organizations that see emergency assistance as a way to get started, and just caution people to be very careful about who they give to and how that goes, because it's a very difficult area to manage. And we've been very fortunate to have had exceptional legal advice in this space since its inception. So where we are now, we launched the Bartender Emergency Assistance Program, formally got our 501c3 recognition from the IRS in 2014, and so we had been granting, between $50,000 and $200,000 a year out to bartenders in need, starting in 2014 all the way up until 2020. And when the COVID-19 pandemic started shutting down bars right around St. Patrick's Day, 2020, one of our partners at Pernod Ricard, Jameson, had been planning a number of activities that they needed to cancel for safety reasons. And so they called us and asked if they could help establish a fund for bartenders that were out of work due to COVID-19. And we were hoping, as all of us were, that it was just going to be a couple of weeks, and that, the gift that they had offered was going to be a good start, and then we would kind of build from there. Because our application was already available to people and it was online, it was working, when Jameson made this contribution and started sharing out how to apply, we went from processing about 20 to 30 applications a month to receiving over 60,000 in the first 3 days.
Say that number again. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Say that again
60,000.
so my listeners can hear.
60,000 in the first 3 days were the number of applications we received. So I actually had to expand over that weekend. I was having to expand our data plan with the company that was hosting our application because we exceeded it twice with the number of applications that we were hosting, because we just were not prepared for we had no idea that it would be this level of scale. So worked that out over the weekend. We started reaching out to other partners to let them know how great the need was, and quickly started building, sort of a safe and effective application model that could handle the scale. So kind of hit the ground running over that weekend and the next week, and really didn't stop working. The full team didn't stop working that hard for several months. We were able, because of the way the foundation and the guild are set up, we were able to shift very quickly. We were able to reassign our full-time USBG staff, who no longer had any events to produce after the shutdown started happening. We were able to shift about 2/3 of the workforce of our staff to focus 100% on the foundation. So we had a team ready to go, ready to get involved in helping us, in helping to build and process all of these applications. That's something that is not really replicable in a whole lot of organizations because you don't have access to that. We also had an exceptional outpouring of support, both financially and for volunteer hours. All of the brand ambassadors from many brand ambassadors, I would say, from Diageo, from Pernod Ricard and Bacardi, contacted us and asked how they could help. And we set up, I organized a volunteer orientation and recruitment process. And we started bringing people in to start screening applications. Again, as I mentioned, emergency assistance is rife with abuse and misrepresented applications. So we needed to make sure that none of those applications were getting through. So we set up our volunteers to do that. Ultimately, we received over 300,000 applications. We were able to start issuing distributions within 4 weeks of the first application. So we had cash in hand within 4 weeks, even at the scale that we were working. By the end of it, we helped 32,000 bartenders with this program. We raised $10 million. We oriented over 700 volunteers in this effort. And we did all of that in about the vast majority, 95% of that work was completed by August. I just need a breath because I'm reliving that from a couple of years ago. It's still very intense.
Yeah. Well, it was such great work. I know I was able to be behind the scenes for just a very small part. And it was just a beautiful, really, to see how quickly the USBG was able to organize themselves and I feel in a very fair way, be able to lend assistance to those in need during such a crisis in our nation. So it's something to be incredibly proud of. And I do think that this is a moment in time, Aaron, that yourself and the USBG will be remembered very fondly for.
Well, I hope we don't have to do it again. But the next time we need to do a $10 million campaign, we do it not out of reaction to a crisis, but because we've decided as a community that there's something that is that valuable to make such a huge change in our organization, but also in our industry. The other thing, as I mentioned, we were able to scale up very rapidly to support this processing. We were also able to scale down very rapidly. So as those applications, as funding sort of started moving in other directions, as people started to get onto more long-term government support, as the government was able to catch up with this extraordinary need. I don't know if y'all recall, but unemployment websites across the country were crashing because of the number of applications they were receiving. Our application went down once. And it was for about 2 hours and had nothing. And it was something outside of our control. So there was just so much need out there. It was a very intense time. By the end of it, we were able to bring down our administrative costs to under 3%, which is just unheard of. The reason we were able to do that is because of the incredible community that the USBG has built, the infrastructure that it's built, and because of every volunteer and every member who has contributed to that, every sponsor, every partner that's contributed to that, over the last 74 years.
Such an incredible part of the United States bartenders history and the hospitality industry. It's really an amazing effort and achievement. So, bravo and thank you for all of the good work that the USBG did and continues to do for those in need.
Oh, yeah.
It's really amazing. Now, you did mention that next year is the United States Bartenders Guild's 75th birthday. Will you be celebrating?
We will be celebrating. So we've decided that we're going to suspend our regional conference program, which is, one of our favorite things to do every year, to travel to 5 different cities and connect members across the country. But we're going to take a year off of regional conferences, and we're going to have one 75th anniversary conference in the late summer. Registration for that will kick off early next year. But it will be, late August, early September, still working out those final details at the moment. And we'll have an educational conference as its core to our efforts. We hope to bring people from the IBA, the International Bartenders Association, as well as, everyone who has contributed to the USBG's success over these 75 years, to join together and really celebrate this accomplishment of bartenders, right? Like, this organization was built and supported for and by bartenders over these last 75 years. And that is such an accomplishment. These are not people with, overflowing pocketbooks. And they did it out of love for their craft, love for their profession, love for their community, to really commit these hours and these efforts to building this institution. That is worth celebrating.
Oh, it sure is. It absolutely is. Can you tell the listeners where they can find the United States Bartenders Guild and who is eligible to become a member?
Certainly. You can find the U.S. Bartenders Guild at usbg.org. That's the easiest place to find information, membership information, locations of all of our chapters across the country, as well as some of the programs that we are executing now, the current programs, past programs, future programs. You can find out who our volunteer board of directors is and all of the different communities and segments of our industry that they represent. They are an incredibly focused and dedicated group of people that come together to really set the path and the direction for this organization. The board collectively is my boss, and I can tell you as an executive director, their support and their guidance and their love of this organization and of the bar industry is really inspiring and motivating. So you can learn all about them there, and it's definitely worth a read. Who is eligible to be a member? So most associations have most associations, professional societies have a membership for people who are practicing that profession or who are engaged in that occupation. So clearly, we have a bartenders membership, which we kind of categorize as hospitality professional, because we know that there are so many people who within bars, restaurants, hotels, catering companies that engage with a bar, with bartending. And sometimes those people are on their way to become bartenders. Sometimes those people have been bartenders and are taking a next step in their career. Others are currently bartending. So we call that hospitality professional. If you make the majority of your annual income serving guests, then you're a hospitality professional member. Also, most associations have an associate category or a vendor category of membership. Associations are a great place for vendors in all industries, for vendor suppliers in all industries to connect with their customers. And so we do have an associate membership. And this membership is for anybody whose customer is a hospitality professional or the company that they manage. So that's an associate membership. That's for consultants, for beverage alcohol suppliers, for distributors, for glassware companies, for any and for media or PR, anybody else who is engaged in their local bartending community and would like to be a member of the USBG to support its efforts and make those connections. Now, where we are a little bit unique is that we also have a third category of membership for enthusiast members. And this is because we all know that we have some customers that just go above and beyond. They are regulars at our bars. They're the people who are inspired by the stories that we share while we're working. And, it's those guests that really bring the culture of our bars to life and are really part of the fabric of our community. And the USBG has always had enthusiast members, people who have no commercial interest in the hospitality industry, but just care a lot and want to contribute their time, skills, and efforts to this organization. So we have a very small membership category. It's always less than 4%. I think right now it's 2% of members that are enthusiasts. And some of these enthusiasts have been some of our most incredible volunteers, and they bring unique skill sets into our organization, and they do just amazing things. So who is eligible to be a USBG member? Pretty much everybody. Bartenders are passionate about holding space for anyone that they can. They hold the door open. And so really anybody who wants to support the mission and vision of the USBG, play by the rules of the member code of conduct and really contribute and foster to a culture of hospitality is welcome.
That's wonderful. Thank you for clarifying that. I think that, folks will be really excited to hear that, I'm a fan of the cocktail. I'd love to be part of this community. I love to volunteer. This sounds like something great for me to be part of. So thank you for clarifying that. Aaron, can you tell the listeners what the USBG means to you personally?
Yeah. I have always been a community service oriented person. I volunteered a lot in middle school and high school. I was part of a lot of community and philanthropic organizations growing up. It's always been a big part of how I like to see myself reflected in the world, getting my hands dirty and really helping to serve a need. And when I joined the restaurant industry, we may have talked about this on our last call. I was really at a place in my life where I really needed that chosen family that the hospitality industry provided, and and I found it. I found it very early on. I felt like I had access to good mentors. I had good career progression. I was taking the steps that I wanted to take when I wanted to take them, and really enjoying that. When I discovered the USBG, I was at sort of an inflection point of I knew I wanted to take a next step. I knew I wanted to go into ownership, and the USBG was there with the community, with the network, with the resources really that I needed, that community support to take that next step, to take that risk for the first time, and I was so grateful for it. And I was so impressed with the community that had been built in my local chapter in San Francisco, about how everybody came together to help each other grow and excel. How we, as a community, we approach charitable partnerships with other nonprofit organizations. Just, it felt so rich and so accessible. Like, I didn't have to jump through a lot of hoops. It was just there and ready. And so over the next few years, I stayed involved while still doing my own, for-profit, achieving my own for-profit dream, as it was. And then I just realized, I want to give back to this group. I want to help it get to its next level. I want it to get to the best possible version of itself that I can steward, and the organization was receptive to that. It's hard to put into words how that makes how that has impacted me, how it's impacted my life, and how grateful I am to all of the people who said, yeah, you can give it a shot. We'll see what you can do, kid. It was amazing. And I hope that I have been able to do that for other people. I know as we were preparing for this conversation, I wanted to talk about the careers that I have seen go through the USBG and go on to do just amazing things. And that is one of my favorite. That was one of my favorite things to see a young, or not, age is irrelevant, a newer or mid-career bartender join this organization, fall in love with it all over again, or for the first time, and then make the connections, and gain the skill and the knowledge to practice their leadership skills in chapter leadership, to practice their networking skills between different cities by participating in a conference or a competition, and take that next step into management or into supplier or distributor relations, and then just continue to go on to do just incredible things. I cannot count the number of people whose careers have taken off over the last 10 years I've been working on this organization, and how grateful they are to the USBG as well. Like that, when I get to see those people in person and get a high five, hug, or just say hello, you can just see this sort of a spark, a magic, this deep love for a community that helped them along their way.
Well, Aaron, I want to thank you for really leading the charge with the United States Bartenders Guild, for giving the community a purpose, to really being the energy, behind the importance of the organization. And I'm so happy that you came back on Served Up for a part 2, brother. You are the first. And I have a feeling when we get closer to the 75th, you're going to be coming on for a 3rd time. So
all right. Well, I would be thrilled. I am so grateful to you, Bridget, for everything you taught me through the USBG, for being such a great partner in those early years, for being my partner in creating the USBG Foundation, and for always being just an incredible champion for bartenders, and for the Bartenders Guild. Grateful to Southern Glazers for hosting this podcast and investing in it. I mean, what an incredible resource for our community to be able to come together and hear about the exciting things that are happening on all sides to really make this bar community stronger and the best version of itself.
Yeah, the best version of itself. I love that. Aaron, thank you so much for coming on Served Up. And again, I want to wish you just some great health and a whole lot of peace. Cheers to you, Aaron.
Thanks, Bridget.
Thanks for listening. Served Up is brought to you by Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. Produced by Zunu.online. Music by We Killed the Lion can be found on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe to be notified of future Served Up episodes. Cheers!